Hey, you guys, welcome to COVID-19 relief stimulus funding training. 12 billion in stimulus for small minority businesses. The first process will take you maybe 15 minutes, seriously. And the second process, the second loan, because there are two loans that we're going to talk about. One of them is probably going to be forgiven, just like the first time. The other one is based off of a grant, and I'll walk you through the details of that. So, welcome, and let's go ahead and go through the information. For those of you that do not know me, I'm Michelle Brown, and I do government contracting. That's how a lot of you guys know me. I teach you government contracting, whether you are a client from previous, or if you're listening to my channel. So I'm a mentor, I'm a coach, I'm a consultant, and I work with the government a lot. I do a lot of things in my business with the government and regarding the government. I have to credit a lot of my success in my business with government activity. And it's amazing how once we get a new president, which we are going to have a new president, and I will do the same thing that I did with the other president. I always sit down and listen to what they're saying if they're talking intelligently. I write down what the plan is, and I find out how my business, my company can fit into that process. And you guys need to think that way too. Today we're talking about loans, but I've done a whole session on making your business COVID pandemic proof. This could happen again. This was the worst situation that we've ever had because these pandemics have never really turned into full-blown pandemics because we had federal government to manage things differently. So hopefully, things will get cleared up in 2021. We will all go back to normal, but a lot of us are rebuilding our businesses. So there's not much that I don't know about when it comes to federal government and state government, but mostly federal is what I like to work with because there are laws and rules. And this is why we're able to talk about this $12 billion stimulus is because there are laws, there are rules, and there are regulations that support us and that protect us. That's why I like federal government because I already know that there are rules and regulations that will protect me and help me get what I need. So I am a small business myself. I'm minority owned. As you guys can see, you can see my picture right there. I'm woman owned and I'm you. So I know what it feels like to be you. The only difference is my business is different and I have more information than you do because it's my business to know what's going on. That's what I do. So I understand government, I understand the systems, and every day I do two things. I focus on how to get messages out to you guys, and I'm trying to get better with this social media thing. I have not done that well with it in the past. I mean, in the past, like every other company, we've been focused on making money. But COVID changed a lot for us too. And so I have to learn how to better get the message out, how to use social media. I don't have a block up against it anymore, but I'm hoping to really get this message out because there's so many of us that are suffering. So every day I'm using my knowledge and my power to win for myself and to help you win. I've been doing this for over 13 years, actually. So I understand federal, state, county, and city. And the reason that's important is because I understand how money flows from federal to state to county and city. A lot of states or people think in different states that they don't need federal government. Not true. Federal government is what makes all of these things happen. That's a whole long story, but if we don't have the people that we need in federal government, we will get screwed, excuse my French, all the time. So it's important that we have federal government and we need to use our power, which is what we've been doing. So I understand how all of that works. I also understand what doesn't work. And that's why I woke up one day thinking I have to get this message out about this money. because all of the articles I read, nobody was mentioning the set aside at first for minority owned businesses. And when they do mention it, they don't know how it's going to go. So I talked to the SBA about it, and I thought to myself, I have to get this message out. So I understand all of your businesses, woman owned, minority owned, and all of that. And I understand what your challenges are. Even though I may not experience the same thing, I've had a client or I've trained a workshop in person or online that has exactly the same client or same types of situations that you guys have. There's probably nothing I haven't heard so far. Okay, so the reason I'm conducting this training is some of what I've revealed to you already, but there was no specific initiative. And even though I have blocks up against social media, or I used to, I don't anymore, I thought to myself, why isn't anybody getting this message out to minority owned businesses in a bigger way? I know you guys may have heard about it. You just don't know what to do because everything's a secret when it comes to federal. And it's not the federal government's fault. It's really the people they put in place. They're not doing their jobs. The SBA to me should have a massive campaign about this already. They knew it was coming eventually. So the SBA does have a lot of information that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to send you that follow-up information just so you know where to go, because it took me days to figure out what information was true, what information was right. I had to call people. And so I probably still will follow up with you guys if I find out something different through the channel or through if you've signed up to be with us in our community and to get information about this, I'll send you the information. But no one is really, truly helping us to understand. And then I read all of these interviews with small businesses that were having some of the same problems that a lot of you guys are probably having or had the first time. So for those of you that don't know, this is the second round of funding. The first round of funding, if you want to talk about a forgiveness loan, you will need to send me a message. And after I send you the information, go ahead and send me a message because you can have your first PPP loan forgiven, provided you meet certain standards. So no one's helping our communities to understand. So it's part of my job. It's part of some of the other organizations' job. Even the chambers, the Urban League, I'm just not hearing or seeing anything. So we need to realize, you guys need to realize, we have got to start getting the information ourselves. Yes, it's systematic. And I don't necessarily think that part of it is discriminatory. I just think people don't care. Everybody's just caring about themselves. So you have to care about your own self. And you signed up to figure out what's going on so that you can get some of this money. So we need to realize that we have to figure it out on our own, and we must always go and get the information. I will admit, if you're African American, I can't speak for other communities as much, but I'm African American, and we don't go get the information. We need to do better. I just have to say that. We really do need to do better. White communities, Caucasians, they always come get the information. All of my classes, all of my clients, most of them are white men and women that they want the information, and that's how they grow their businesses. That's how they stay afloat. You should see the amount of money that a lot of those businesses got. 450,000, a million, 150,000. It's crazy. And there's a list. The government finally put out a list of the companies that got the money and how much they got. 900,000 entries. So, okay, enough of that. So I hope that I've impressed upon you that you need to feel that these things are for you. They're made to help you, and we don't always have the right messengers, but we still need to go and get the information. So we're going to talk about disaster assistance. That's what this is for small businesses in general, but also specifically for you if you are a minority-owned business. If you are a regular small business, this is for you too, meaning you're not minority-owned. You're woman Caucasian-owned or male Caucasian-owned. That's fine too. But the problem with minority-owned businesses is that there was no money carved out for the smaller minority-owned businesses in the micro in the arena. You may only need $10,000, but that's kind of unrealistic if you could get more, because most of you have facilities, you have a storefront, some of you have 2 or 3 or 5 or 20 employees. It just really depends on your situation. But regardless, they understood. When I say they, some of the people in Congress finally realized, oh my goodness, a lot of these small women and minority owned businesses did not get money. And remember, small to the federal government is any company under $40 million. And to most of us, that's not small. Personally, I'm going to stay small. I don't mind making 40 million. It's not a problem for me. I don't mind being considered small. You know why? Because I get things that everybody else is not going to get. Not because I'm black, but because I'm small. And small business is where you want to be when it comes to government programs, when it comes to government contracting, when it comes to things like this, because you are a protected group. Okay, so, but if I'm a $40 million business or a $30 million, you shouldn't have to compete with me if you're only a $2 million business, or if you just started your business and you only made $2,000 this year. You shouldn't have to do that. So that's why they did this, because somebody finally figured it out. So let's start with the first description of the 2 types of stimulus assistance we're talking about. The first one is the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. That is a fund where they put an additional $20 billion. Some of you heard about people getting grants. This is more like a grant. Okay, even though it's a loan and you have to pay it back, you won't have to pay it back for a year, and it's very low interest rate, but they're not forgiving these. A lot of these under the EIDL were kind of small. They were smaller, but they were like an advance. You probably heard about some people getting $10,000 up front. They had an advance part of this program. They don't have that anymore. Now, I hear people out there talking about that, but that part has gone away. And what that advance was if you filled out the application, they quickly sent you within, maybe 3 to 7 days, a portion of the money they were going to give you. So they might send you 5,000, 10,000. And so don't believe everything you hear. You have to know the facts. And this program is run by the SBA, even though the SBA is acting like they don't know what to do sometimes. That's why I gave them 6 days or 5 or 6 days before I did this training, because I wanted to make sure they weren't going to change the forms. I wanted to make sure that the money was there, because this money comes from federal to the SBA portal. Okay, so this loan you will do directly with the SBA. No banks, no one else involved. And we're going to walk through that process. And again, $20 billion set aside, but it's more like a grant. And the reason it's more like a grant is because they had to find a way to put money aside for people to get immediately. Okay, and this is that. Then number 2 is the PPP, the famous Paycheck Protection Program. I know you guys heard about this. Now, this is where the $12 billion is set aside for minority-owned businesses. The reason they had to do that is because of what we talked about earlier. All the money was sucked up by all the bigger companies, non-minority companies that knew how to get this money, that have relationships with banks. And you know these big banks, but you can be with these banks and have a relationship with them for 20 years, and they will not give you money. I've seen it happen to my women-owned white clients who have excellent credit, all kinds of assets, and they don't give it to them either. So there are systematic discriminations. It's not just with minorities, but women go through a lot. Women, period, go through a lot of these same things as well. But the Paycheck Protection is a little bit different. This is the loan that is being forgiven. If you got a first PPP loan, it's being forgiven. So you could fill out some paperwork. I'm not going to cover that in here, but if you want to have your first loan forgiven, then you need to respond to us, and we will let you know what you need to do. We'll let you know the application, but that loan can be forgiven. The difference is you don't have to work with the bigger banks this time. You can work with a CDFI bank, which is a community type bank in your area. How do you find them? I have a list. Okay. What these smaller community banks did was they told the government also, they were part of the process for making sure that the small businesses, the small minority businesses didn't get cut out, because they had you guys coming to them, asking them, can you help me? But they were not part of the SBA process. So a lot of them got together under an association or an organization to lobby Congress and say, you need to give us some of that money so that we can help smaller businesses, smaller minority businesses. And that's what happened. Some of those organizations were trying to help you guys figure out how to navigate the process, but they didn't know what to do either until they got this money. So this PPP loan, if you are able to get this, which many of you will be able to get this if you want it or if you need it. Some of you may decide you only want to go after number one. Maybe you don't want to go after both. Okay, so the other thing is that you can get both of these. Now, the EIDL loan, the economic injury loan, if you get, let's say, $10,000 from that loan, when you apply for PPP, they will deduct your EDI amount that you receive, because that one is faster. And so I think everybody should apply for that. I don't care what your situation is. Apply for it. I don't care if they give you $3,000. Apply for it, because you probably need 3 times that. You might need 90,000. You might need 50,000, but take whatever you can get. You earned it in the sense that you have a business too. All of these other businesses are taking it with no shame. And there should be no shame attached to it unless you don't need it. Like these larger companies, some of those companies gave it back, but you can apply for both. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you the difference between the two before I go into how it works for the first one. And let me just check on you guys just to make sure you're okay. Okay, looks like everybody's okay. Remember, you can ask questions if you need to. So the EDI, the first one to the left, I already basically explained to you what that is, but that's a long-term direct loan. And I hope you guys can see my screen, because I know I needed to use these specific documents so that you guys can see them. And when I send them to you, you will know what they are. But some of the writing can be a little bit small. But the economic injury disaster loan is a long-term direct loan from the SBA. So the SBA, I already said, that is managing the process, okay? It's to help you meet financial obligations for right here, right now. So if you have operating expenses that you need to meet, or you need to maybe pay your rent, you need to, it's not specifically for payroll, but you could use it for that if you wanted to, if you don't plan to go for the PPP. But it's basically working capital. Now, will everybody get 6 months worth of working capital? Not guaranteed, but you definitely need to ask. Ask for what you need, okay? All they can do is say, we can't give you that much, or we can give you half of that, or we can give you 3 months worth. But you can actually qualify for up to 6 months. And then also the terms are 3.75%. For businesses, and then most of you guys are for-profit businesses, so that would be your rate. Nonprofits have a different rate, and it could actually be a 30-year loan, but I mean, if it's $10,000, that's not bad. You're also going to have a year before you have to start paying on it, because they want everybody to recover and get back to normal. Also, collateral. You don't need any collateral. They won't ask you for anything unless you go over 25,000. Okay. What else? If you need a loan for 200,000 or more, they will ask you to sign a personal guarantee. So the economic injury disaster loan is for working capital. That's like, what's going on right now? What do I need to pay? I need to keep my website up. I need to keep my, all of my basic stuff going. I need my telephone. You can pay those things. Okay. Now the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, You see where it says no longer available? That's for the advance. Remember, I told you the advance is no longer available, but the loan itself is still available. Okay. They haven't updated this really, which they should. This is why I had to call them and make sure that certain documents and certain things did not change. But the PPP money is there. It has and is being distributed to the banks. And in your case, it's being distributed to minority owned banks, which are called MDIs. And I'll talk to you about that. And also, it's being distributed to the CDFIs, the community banks, because they're going to understand you better. They are required to consider you better, meaning they're not going to nitpick things about you. They shouldn't. And I do want you guys to let me know. I don't want you to let me know things that are too personal, but if you're having a hard time or you're not getting what you need, I want you to let me know so that I can talk about it and I can put it on shout. Because I just think that once we get the information, as long as we try, we can't complain. But we can complain when we're not being treated well or we're not being considered. And that money is there for small minority businesses. So it should be used for you. So if you're having a hard time, and the only reason that a lot of these companies gave back some of that money and a lot of these banks changed their ways is because they were put on blast about how they were acting, about how they were treating small businesses. Don't think that these things don't happen to, general population businesses too, meaning Caucasian businesses. They have their problems too. They get mistreated too. But the difference is they speak up. They go to the news. They go tell the news. Well, you know what? I went to Bank of America and this is what they did to me. They speak up. We have to do the same thing. So you can get up to $10 million. Obviously, that's a hefty payment plan, but the terms are 1%. Now, they were saying 2 to 5 years, depending on when your loan was approved. If the regulation stays that way, you have 5 years because this is a second round and this is a different situation, but you need to confirm that if you decide to get this loan. You need to just confirm that with either the SBA and the lender that you choose to use. But this is the loan that can also be forgiven. A lot of those people that got 10 million, 1 million, 3 million, 500,000, they're going to apply for forgiveness, guaranteed, which is fine. I mean, we were in a pandemic, but you guys need to not be afraid to take this money if you need it to keep your doors open. The other thing I want to say is you can't probably reinvent your company with the EIDL loan, the economic injury, because you probably won't get a whole lot. Some of you may, but you can reinvent your business with the PPP loan, meaning I know you have to use it for payroll, but you could keep your employees. You can think about adding other services. You can save your business. You can save your business with both, depending on what your needs are. But I know all small businesses, unless you are in a certain industry, have been hurting for 6 months. 6 months. So, we've lost more than 800 businesses a month. That's a lot. And it's probably way worse than that. It's probably way worse than that. So just think about how can I not only survive, but what can I do what other streams of income can I do? And I'm very creative with those things because that's how I built my business, is realizing I have to have different streams of income. We all do. Every business does. And that's why I do government contracting, is because I will always have a customer with government contracts as long as I do things properly, as long as I take care of my customer, with the government, as long as I make sure that I take it seriously. I have a question here. Let me see. One website we used at the Dallas Black Chamber of Commerce to get Black-owned Black-owned businesses PPP funding was, okay, that's good. That's good to know. So what Jay is saying is that they were able to find out information, because this is from the CARES Act. That's what it's called through Congress. But they were able to find information from their chamber. So if you and the reason that's important is because your chamber is probably going to help you look at different banks if they're a good chamber. Okay, we have all minority chambers. We have the Asian chamber, the Hispanic chamber. So take the information I'm telling you, and then I'm going to give you the information about the banks for the PPP loans. And what you need to do is maybe talk to your chamber to see if they've been working with any of the minority owned banks or any of the community banks. And it's important because I don't want you guys having to scramble trying to find banks to work with for the PPP loan. So I'm going to send you a list, like a national directory of these community banks, and also a separate directory for the minority owned banks. The FDIC has given us a list of Asian banks, Black owned banks, Hispanic owned banks. Believe it or not, there's a whole list, not a lot, but there's enough for us. Some of you guys, I looked up in my state, we don't even have one. Why am I surprised? But not every state has one. So this is why your chamber could be helpful. Thank you, Jay, for that information. That was very helpful. So, and it tells me that at least some of our chambers, and Texas is on top of the money. Texas has always been, I'm surprised that Texas is a Republican state because Texas is very, very small business friendly. I don't know if people think that Democrats are not business friendly, but they are. Our economies do better under Democrats. I don't know who tells people that they do better under Republicans. It just appears that way. That's another story. But Texas has always been very active for their small businesses. So has Maryland. Maryland is another state. So if you live in Texas or Maryland, you're probably going to find what you need. Okay, so let's go on to the next part. So you guys understand the differences. The economic injury loan you can use for working capital, whatever you need to use it for, you know, your telephones, your rent, whatever you think you need to use it for. Just please document what you're doing in case they come back and ask you questions. Okay. Your PPP loan, same thing. You must document everything for your PPP loan because you need your information for forgiveness. You're going to need to prove, like if you get a PPP loan this time or you had one last time and you want to claim forgiveness, you need to have documentation showing why you should get forgiveness, what you use the money on, how you try to stay open. Okay, so documentation is important. I know you may not be able to keep it up to look perfect when you're documenting, but write it down and come back later and clean it up. Okay? Okay, let's first talk about the economic injury disaster loan. So this loan, I kind of already told you this, what it could be used for, but I just need to make this statement. If you're a small business, a nonprofit organization of any size, or a agricultural business with 500 or fewer employees, you can qualify for this. Okay. There are other disaster type loans, but there are a lot of paperwork. This is the one you want to apply for. You only want to apply for the EIDL loan, okay, which is what we're going to go over to. When I send you some of these links, you'll see a lot of different information, but I'm telling you what you need to pay attention to and look for so you're not all over the place. I will only send you information and links that will allow you to get through the process quickly because like I said, this economic injury loan, it's very quick to do. You'll do it in 20 minutes. So the advance, I told you it's no longer available. So don't, if they give you one, that's great. If you get your loan deposited into your bank account within a few days, that's amazing. Sometimes it does take, up to 10 days. If you are getting worried that you haven't heard anything, I will give you the people to contact at the SBA so that you can call them and ask them what's going on. Eligibility, they're kind of keeping that a secret, but I do have an FAQ that explains why you may have gotten less, why you may have gotten more, why you may not have gotten anything. But with this one, pretty much everybody's getting something. I haven't heard anybody applying for the EIDL and not getting anything. I think it's because they know they caused this mess. The federal government caused this mess. This is much worse then obviously they didn't create COVID, but the way this has been handled and all of the things that we are all experiencing is has everything to do with how we handle things. Even in your business, that happens. If you don't handle things right, you create a bigger mess. So the federal government and the states were not connected. Otherwise, we might be in a little bit better position where we don't have to close our doors and all of that. So I have not seen them really turn anybody down. I don't know. That's why I want you guys to let me know or send us a message saying, they turned me down for this stupid reason, or they turned me down and I didn't hear anything. I heard that about PPP, but I didn't hear that about this grant right here, the EIDL loan. So just kind of be prayerful and hope that you will get this. I applied in 2020. Hold on just a second. I have a question that I want to read. I applied in 2020 but was denied due to credit. Now, was this the EIDL or was this the PPP? I'm waiting on my reconsideration. See, you're smart. You know that there's a reconsideration process. And yes, there is a new round. Somebody also asked the question, is there a new round of money? Yes, the $20 billion, 20 extra billion dollars has been put into that fund. This is why I'm upset with the SBA that they're not getting this word out. Because if you go on the internet, you will see that they're no longer taking applications for the EIDL loan. But then you will see that you can go ahead and go through the process. But they are taking applications. That's why I'm upset with the SBA, because they really need to do a better job. But there is more money. This is new. All of this is new money. There is $284 billion that has been put aside for small businesses, period. 20 billion of those dollars is for this EIDL. 12 billion of those dollars is taken out of the 284 billion for minority-owned businesses. So there's plenty of money out there. And that's what happened last time. Before people get the truth, all the money is gone. So stay on top of your reconsideration and maybe even reach out to your one of your chambers for help, or reach out to your congressperson or your Senate person. Call the office, because right now they're not getting a lot of calls like they were before. Okay, so this is a good time to call. Well, I take that back. They might be getting a lot of calls about the Senate race that just happened yesterday. I take that back, because a lot of people are mad about that.